2009 Toyota Tundra, bad fuel pump. And you may be asking yourself, well, how do I know it's got a bad fuel pump? Well, two things. One, if you turn the key, I got power seats, but anyway, if you turn the key and don't hear a pump, that's usually a problem. Second problem is, won't start. The other thing we can do is test the fuel pressure. That's what we're going to do next. A short backstory is this truck, I could tell, wasn't wanting to start anymore, and I filled it up with a full tank of gas, drove it home, parked it overnight, and here's where it sits. The next morning it would start and run for 2 seconds and then just turn off. So we're going to take off this cover, take off those two bolts, hook in a pressure gauge, and see what kind of pressure we have while starting. Well, I am finding no port to drain this. I think you have to disconnect this, but I'm not doing that. I'm just going to assume that it's a fuel pump, go ahead and put a new one. I'd like to be able to test it, but I'm not going to go spend $150 to have the fuel pressure tested at the dealer to tell me, and a towing for 300 bucks. So we're just going to replace the fuel pump. It's almost 10 years old, and we're just going to go for it. I see no port to test like many other vehicles have a little fuel port, and I bought a kit to test it. But I'm pretty sure this line here is the incoming fuel line. It drops right into the fuel rail and goes to both sides, fuel rail. So we're just going to move on. We're going to go ahead and just do that fuel pump like it's bad. So unfortunately, the tank is full, so I have access to be able to pump this out. You either need a hand pump, some cans to put it in, have a transmission jack, and that's what we're going to go for here, is to remove this fuel pump. So in order to remove this fuel pump, we have to remove this fuel hose and get a tube down in there. And the weird thing is, I've noticed that Titan's not using any kind of hose clamps. So we got to pull that off, and then we got to disconnect that line right there, which is the vent for the fuel tank, because we're going to be dropping this and disconnecting it. So let's keep on going. Well, this hose was super easy to get off. You just have to reach your arm up underneath there and pull that off. The other one with the damn button there was hard as hell. You had to press that in there with all your thumb strength to get that off. So that's disconnected. So now I'm going to try to get a hose inside that tank and see if it's got, may have an anti-theft, which is really going to suck if I can't get that out. Then we'll just have to lower the whole tank down and pump it out through the thing. But I'm going to try to stick a hose in there first and see if that works. Alright, I'm laying under the truck on a blanket, got some tools. This is the bracket shield, and then you have straps that hold the tank up. So you have shield bolt, bracket. So when I disconnect this, all it's going to pull down is this little shield. I can't even get a good. This is the same thing. Shield bolt. And a shield bolt. So there's 4 shield bolts on this thing. Sorry, I'm not getting a very good picture. But we're going to remove the 4 shield bolts first. Okay, I'm back under this tank. And my tank was damaged and bent, which is making this thing have some spring tension. So when I undid that first bolt, this thing popped down kind of in my face. I'm laying under here, which is not a good thing. So I'm going to get in a position where I'm not laying under the tank. It weighs about 150 pounds because it's full of gas. And I'm going to keep moving on. Alright, this is one of those fancy nut drivers. It's the number 13 instead of a 12. I just hammered that on there, and then I'll clean that up with my grinder wheel before I put it back on and lube that up. So now I got 3 of them off, onto the last one. Right now I'm using my legs to hold this plate up while I do this last screw. I'm going to put the camera down so I can use 2 hands. This thing don't ratchet without 2 hands really. When they get loose, they stop working. But see, I'm using my legs. I'm out here by myself. That's the last bolt, and that's the bracket. So now we're going to move on to the tank. Alright, my next step is to use this transmission jack. You can buy these at Harbor Freight. I bought this a long time ago. I think it's $100, $150 or something, but I've used it for multiple jobs, transmissions, fuel tanks. And basically what I got is a board to distribute, and I don't really want the tanks sitting on these little bumpies, so I'm going to put a blanket and fold it in between that board, and that'll give it something so it's not so slippery to slide around on. Okay, from here we're looking at this tank underneath the straps. It looks like this is a swing arm, so once we release those, this tank is going to fall straight down, which is actually nice because it's away from the drive shaft. I had to remove the drive shaft on the Toyota to get it out. So I think these are going to swing down, so I'm going to get my transmission jack up underneath this thing to hold it. And we're going to loosen these bolts, lower it down, disconnect the lines. Hopefully it'll be that simple. Well, problem is I couldn't use the blanket because this is only going to lower like 2 inches. And hopefully that's enough room to reach up in there and disconnect all that stuff. I have a feeling it's not. So I may have to, I don't know, lower it on some boards or bricks, and that clears that strap. And that clears that strap. So this is getting kind of sketchy, but we're gonna undo those bolts and try to drop it down and disconnect all those lines. Well, the next problem I see is most of the weight of the gas is back there with the pump, because the tank is narrow on this end, a little bit higher, so all the weight's going to be back there. So I know I'm going to have some problems. I may have to get a jack stand and put on this end, and a jack stand on that end, disconnect that and slide that down that way. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'll figure something out. Alright, the next thing was getting these straps out. I actually had to push the tank away from the wall a little bit, but they go in there, they come out, you got to jiggle them sideways, so that's why I needed a little bit of room to get those out, because they lock up in there and you got to turn them sideways to get them out. So I'm going to take the other one out. You're going to need them out of the way. Alright, this is the problems. The bed stops right there. The fuel pump's up underneath the cab. So it's not like you can just remove the bed. That was one suggestion. Just remove the bed. Cut a hole in the floor, which I'm going to be very aggravated if there's a plate or something, but I don't see one. And all the Armadas, all them other cars got a little plate in the floor where you can get to it, but that's where the two separate. I can't even see if I can. Okay, I don't know if you can see. I can just barely see that emissions tube that's going over there. So you're supposed to disconnect that emissions tube, but I don't see why. Looks like if I just disconnect that over there. Oh, I don't know where that tube goes. This is just ridiculous. there's a cover with 3 bolts on it. But I would like to know how far down I can drop this tank to get to that. Because that's the same problem as I had with the Toyota. You just can't work up in there with that damn drive shaft. Alright, I am right-handed. So, you're basically going to have to reach up in here with your right hand and work blind. Even though I can see it with this camera, that bolt, and this is huge. It's way bigger than it shows in a couple other pictures. We have to remove that shield and then disconnect all the lines up there. So it looks like a 12 or a 13, and I'll get a socket up there and remove those 3 bolts, and then we'll start removing the lines, and then we'll try to drop this sucker. I also see hooking right into that damn tank, so I need to secure that, fix that before I end up damaging my tank. Alright, basically I'm laying here turning sideways, sticking my arm up through here, my hand's going up in there and working with one hand above the tank. That's how I've had to work blind. When I'm taking pictures, sometimes I sit up and I can just look at the picture with my phone. I'm using my phone as a kind of a mirror shot to help me work. So I'll...
Alright, that's the 3 nuts out. That is the cover plate. I just used a wrench. It was pretty easy to get them loose and then finger tight, so I'm going to pull that off. Okay, here's the problem. That one is a squeegee. That one is some sort of plug. Then you have another one over there. So we got to get those son of a guns off. I can't see how to squeeze them to get them off. That's the EDAP. That's the fuel line going maybe to the wall over there. What a pain. Okay, one with the squeegee, it's off. The thing you push right. I can't touch it, but you just push the top towards the back where the wiring is. That's loose. Now the problem is, that SOB right there, I cannot see how to unhook it.
Alright, I got it loose. It wasn't necessarily that it was hard. It was about pinching the things on there, and you'll be able to see them when I get it off. That little black clip has to release the sides. And basically there was no fuel pressure, so we know again that there's just no fuel pressure coming out of that pump. So let's see if we... One of my biggest problems is this tank is full and it weighs 150 pounds. So I put this jack up underneath there, pulled the middle one out, and then just pulled that out, let it fall on the ground, which I don't like doing, but what are you gonna do? I just don't have the thing to... So now we gotta decide whether we're dropping that, get that board out of there, we'll get this jack under there, pick that up, pull the brick out, get these out of the tools out of there. That's what I'm doing next. Well, safely on the ground. I did exactly what I said I was going to do. I put that under there, slid the brake out, and just kicked that off onto the ground. It only had to fall freaking 6 inches. Tried to support it with a blanket, and this son of a gun is heavy. Now my next problem is it's too tall to get out from underneath the frame, so I'm going to have to jack up the rear of the truck and slide that out, and then we can finally get that fuel out of there. Well, you're not going to stick a hose in there and suck the fuel out. That was a good idea, bad attempt. That's the one you have to press really freaking hard. Oh, it's top and bottom. But yeah, you got to squeeze top and bottom. This one, you squeeze the thing. This one, you have to push those in to release it. And it's hard because it's up against that. This one wasn't too bad. It was just a press clip and slid off. Alright, so they always say wash it, but I'm not going to wash it. I'm going to freaking open this damn thing out and pump it out because I just can't lift the damn thing. Look at that, some sort of weird crud. Anyway, this is what's probably bad because when I disconnected this fuel line, no fuel came out at all. So I know it was starting and would run a few seconds, and then that was it, and then it just wouldn't do nothing. So now we gotta spin this tabs around with some screwdrivers, get that off, pull that out, empty the fuel, wash it. All right, tank's pretty nasty on the outside, but I did, man, you can't even see it. Cleaned it, wiped it out. I got nearly 10, 20 gallons easy out of this tank. And I cleaned up this ring area, and I'm just gonna put the new one on. And then I'm gonna wipe this tank down a little better before I shove it up under there, but I'm not gonna get all crazy like the other people did and wash this tank and stuff. It's just gonna get dirty again. The important thing is this little ring around here don't have dirt, and you're not getting dirt down inside. Okay, this has to travel over. When we started, this thing was over here, so it traveled over the hump and stopped right there. All three of them stopped, and our line relined back up. So that's good. So let's wipe it off a little bit and shove it back under there and get this thing back in. All right, I push that back up in there. I'm gonna remove the brick, lower that down, pick that up, sit it under the brick, put the jack up underneath the front, and start working my way to get it back up, and then get this jack under there. And the kid screaming across the street. Well, interesting footnote. This piece has to actually come off and go on the new one. It doesn't come with that. The other one was really hard to clip. I had to grab that thing and push it on there for it to clip onto that thing, because I could put it on, take it off, put it on, take it off. Same with this one. I slid it on and didn't click, and I'm like, what the heck? That one doesn't need one. It's part of the hose, so let me carefully get that off so we can reuse it. All right, there's the cover plate loosely bolted. I'm going to go ahead and tighten those three, and we'll get the straps on. And this thing was supposed to be smashed down in there, but I don't know if I'm gonna. It probably popped out when I got my arm stuck. Ow! Got my arm stuck in between the muffler and the drive shaft as I was contortioning. So be careful if you're gonna have to get a skinny guy after this. All right, basically I'm laying here, turning sideways, sticking my arm up through here. My hand's going up in there and working with one hand above the tank. That's how I've had to work blind. When I'm taking pictures, sometimes I sit up and I can just look at the picture with my phone. I'm using my phone as a kind of a mirror shot to help me work. So all three of those are bolted down. Next thing we're going to do is put the straps back on. All right, that part was pretty easy. We basically got the jack and jacked it up and pushed it in place. Got the other bolt started. I'm going to go over there before I tighten those up, make sure that hose and that line to the thing reconnect. And I did find what was really weird. I found the hose clamp for that. So somebody had either tried to siphon gas or fart with that and pulled that off. So that's a mystery what's going on with this tank here, but well, I went around here and I put on the, well, I can't see him from this side. Well, son of a gun. I put on the hose and that little thing that were there on that side. Now I'm gonna tighten up these bolts. Okay, well, those are tight, and let's lift it up off the jack by itself. So we're gonna get the cover plate on there and then put the fuel back in, 10 gallons, and fire it back up, see what happens. All right, fun times. We got all four of those son of a guns put back on there. 1, 2, 3, 4. Everything's connected up there. The hose, oh, I gotta put the hose clamp on, and then we're gonna put gas in it and try it. Okay, last deal. I'm right-handed. I had to reach up in here with my left hand. I'm holding the camera with my right, and used a long extension to tighten that back up. Now yours will probably have that on there when you go to take it off, so you got to get that off. Mine was off, so that means to tell me somebody has monkeyed with this tank for some reason. Well, anyway, I'm going to put gas in it. Let's go. All right, moment of truth. We got I still don't hear no pump. Oh, started on the second thing, and I put 10 gallons in it, and it's only reading that much. 10, I don't know, maybe that was more like 8 gallons, but anyway, that's about right. So we'll fill it up the rest of the way. We got a running truck. Yeah. I knew something was wrong the other day because it didn't want to start anymore. Might take a while for the computer to resettle in for the fuel pressure. But I think that's a running truck now. Up with that. Alright, this is the last recap on the 2009 Nissan Titan with the bad fuel pump. And it was acting up, acting kind of strange, and I kind of thought it was the gas that I was running in there, so I actually went to the gas station and filled it up. It was kind of low, like a quarter of a tank, and it just didn't want to start, and it was acting weird. So I went to the gas station and filled it up, and same thing, and I parked it right here where it's sitting in the driveway and came out the next morning, and I could cycle the key like 3 times and it would run for like 2 seconds and shut off. So it just didn't have any fuel pressure. And you know, I was kind of hoping that I could test the fuel pressure, but there was no port for it. This is what I ordered. This was 60 bucks. It took about 4 hours to change the thing. And that's the part number. I got a name brand. This was 60 bucks. They had some that were cheaper, but I wanted a name brand. So for $60 and 4 hours of free labor, I got a running truck again.